Welcome to the Big Picture Manatee. Our mission here, as you know, is that we're nonpartisan space to listen, learn, inform, educate the public about issues affecting Manatee County. And we're here today with a special edition, a government P card. What is it and how to use it? Morning, Misty.
Hey, good morning, Sherry. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure.
So we're going to talk about PCards today, but we want to remind our crowd here that's listening that all the views expressed here today are our own and not reflective of the Big Picture Manatee as a whole. Also, we want to let everyone know that our friend and colleague, Reggie Bellamy, unfortunately can't join us today because his father passed away and he's spending time with his family, and all our prayers go out to him and his family.
Yeah, Reggie, just know that you're in our hearts, and we are just sending you lots of good wishes, and we're sorry for the pain you're going through. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to talk a little bit about the purpose of a government P card, and especially Manatee County policies. And I'll just start off from my old administration days and also as being an employee with a P card. As we know, in at least Manatee County, there's almost 500 employees, administration and commissioners total that have P cards issued in their name. So just for the audience's information, the P card is really no different than a credit card that you have in your own name for personal use. But there's a few nuances because, as you know, those are taxpayer dollars that the P card expenses are charged to. So for a government P card, there is actually a manual, an instruction manual and training that's provided to every employee that has a P card, including commissioners. Is that correct, Misty?
Yeah, absolutely. I went through it, and it is a requirement, and it's extensive training.
That's right. And so that training and the manual that's actually approved by the Board of County Commissioners when there are changes, there's a current one in place, identifies the levels in which employees can purchase depending on their job or their role, and some guidelines around what's allowable and what's not. And obviously the main goal is, all for a public purpose. So people might wonder, so Misty, were you going through your P card charges when you were a commissioner?
There weren't that many, frankly. For me, when I was issued a P card after I went through the training and had agreed to follow all the rules, I gave my P card to our assistant at the time because the only time that I really used it was for travel. And I was always receiving help in booking a hotel or a flight or whatever the travel had required. And then it was put in a packet to take with me to that particular trip. So other than that, it's not like I carried it in my wallet, it was something that we used only in particular situations.
I'd have to agree with you, even as the administrator and an employee that had a P card. I was always very careful to leave that behind, except traveling or doing specific work with the county. So I just wanted to share with the audience here that, the county issued P card statements come through just like possibly your regular credit card statement would. Comes every month. There are charges on those. They go through a review process, and you, as the purchaser or your designated person to review your charges, goes through and reviews those to determine if they can be forwarded, if they are deemed to be appear to be in line, basically from the charge, or it's tied back to a travel, let's say, like Misty was remembering, then those would be checked off and then submitted along with hundreds of others charges that might be in your department or in the division or section that you're in. Those go to the clerk's office, and those are paid because your credit card, like your normal credit card, has to be paid by a certain date or you incur penalties. Same way with the government P card. However, from time to time, there could be charges that are scrutinized weeks, months, even later if there are audits done. And I can recall if there are those instances, normally you would provide some sort of a backup or memo to clarify that judgment of that purpose, whether it's attending a conference that had a particular topic that is related to potentially an upcoming item that might be on an agenda, or is specific about certain types of programs or guidance that you're working on. And so you're always given the opportunity to clarify that with the clerk. If there's a discrepancy between the clerk and the employee or the department, most likely that would just continue to be researched until it was resolved. There could be instances, though, where it might be a purchase that would end up not being able to be resolved, and the employee would need to reimburse the county through the clerk for those charges. So it's really not unlike you reviewing your own credit card statement, but you are responsible for the things that you charge to the P card. So does that sound unusual, Misty, or different than what you recall?
It's so similar because I've had the responsibility of a credit card and private business now, and a couple of different places that I've worked. And you have that credit card so that you can do certain things that benefit the business. And the business, the corporate office or whatever would pay the credit card bill. But we were always required in that scenario to keep receipts, to tell the office, what project was it related to, what was the benefit to the company. I'm not going to Home Depot to buy pipe for my irrigation system at home. I am doing these things for the company or for a project that we may even, ask the client to reimburse. So, translate that to the government side, and it's the same thing. But and rightly so, I think it's a little bit different. You have one more check and balance, right? So you have guidelines to use that credit card, the P card, and you do so for things that are going to benefit the public and the county. And you review that with all the people on our side at county administration to say, yes, I did this charge. I made this charge for this reason, doing this thing, and it looks good, and you sign it. And then the clerk of the court, who is our comptroller, they review it again. It's just another set of checks and balances that you don't have in private business, and is so important because these are tax dollars. And everybody wants their tax dollars to make sure they're spent accordingly. I can recall one time that the clerk came to me, the clerk's office said, wait a minute, this is a charge that can't be found to be appropriate and within our guidelines. And it was a time that we had traveled to Washington, D.C., and the way it worked is we had a lobbyist that the county hired through a contract. And part of that contract was that when commissioners came up to do lobbying work, that our lobbyist would cover our meals while we were there. That was just part of the contract. And so I remember one of the meals that the lobbyist had scheduled, we just go up there. We had no idea what's scheduled, but there was a dinner that was on a boat. And when the clerk received that bill and said, wait a minute, dinner is fine, but on a boat, that is not appropriate. And therefore, you guys, well, me, I don't know which other commissioners, you will have to pay that bill because you were on a boat. And that's just not something we cover. To which I said, well, absolutely. I didn't even know that, but sure, that makes sense. And I wrote a check. I'm just not somebody that's going to question when the comptroller says it doesn't fit the guidelines. Boy, I want to be in that lane. So,
Right.
That's kind of the difference. But there's a lot of accountability when you have a P card.
Yeah, that's a good example. And just again, for the public to know that it's not a random selection of from the comptroller, like, let's say that this is or isn't a public purpose. There's guidelines to follow. They're in writing. There's a manual that lists basically the levels, amounts that individuals can charge, and for the types of purposes. And if you follow those things, normally none of these concerns happen. So today in the special edition, we just wanted to make sure the public knew that a government P card functions quite honestly very similar to your own credit card. It has a statement. All of the purchases are listed on the statement. Many times the description, though, is not detailed enough for someone to know exactly what you've purchased. So that might require additional paperwork, keeping receipts, providing agendas that highlight the topic that was a public purpose, or writing additional notes as to what you plan to do with the information. All those are common practice. Employees do that all the time when the bills are submitted to the clerk, and then those items get paid. But the one difference, as we're indicating here, that makes the government P card different than your own credit card is that there's another institution, the clerk comptroller, that has the requirement to make sure that all expenditures meet the guidelines as well. And so in cases where they may not, this is where you see the clerk come in and question more in depth. So covering that topic, we just thought that was important because there's some information in the news right now and people were asking us, how does it work? So thanks, Misty, for explaining a couple of your examples and how they work. And we just really want to make sure the public's informed. So there's some other new ways to get in touch with us, right, Misty?
Oh, yeah. So for those of you who don't know, our website is up and it is active. You can go to www.thebigpicturemanatee.com, and there you'll find our website. And there's also a place where you can send us a message. If you have any ideas for shows, if you have any comments or questions, we'll get those messages. So please go to our website and let us know your thoughts.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for watching today. And we want to remind you that you can find us and subscribe to us on YouTube at the Big Picture Manatee. While you're there, give us a like. We'd love to have you come back and have you receive new episodes as they become available. You can also find us on Facebook at the Big Picture Manatee as well. So signing off today, we just want you to know we're going to be talking more about the budget throughout the summer, and we want to hear from you. So as Misty mentioned, if you have any specific topics you'd like us to cover, send us an email and we'll be happy to look into it. Thanks, everybody.
Great
Have
job,
a happy
Sherry.
4th of July.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.